Welcome, students. I am your instructor, Sandra Hindu. Welcome to Lean Six Sigma White Belt, lecture number 5. If you're following along in your Lean Six Sigma White Belt official slide deck, please turn to slide number 95. Let's look at the SIPOC definition. SIPOC stands for Suppliers, Inputs, Process, Output, Customer. SIPOC maps. SIPOC is a very high-level process map that helps identify the key suppliers who provide inputs in the form of data, knowledge, resources, and so on to the process. The process produces the outputs that meet the requirements of the customers. A process description is an explanation of a process that provides outputs to meet the needs of the customers. The input and output boundaries define the start and stop boundaries of the process. The outputs are the results of the process. Special care should be taken to determine how these outputs relate to the customer expectations. That is, do they meet or exceed the customer's requirements? Lastly, C stands for the customers. The customers are the people who receive input requirements on the outputs. Customers can be either internal or external. The SIPOC chart should be specific in documenting which. Now, customer requirements and measures are the quantifiable expectations of the process outputs. O. The output must be measured and then compared to customer requirements to quantify customer satisfaction. The I stands for inputs. The inputs are what the process needs to function. The input requirements and measures are the quantifiable expectation the process puts on the inputs. Then S is suppliers. The suppliers provide the necessary inputs to the process. So let's review. S stands for what? Suppliers. I is the inputs. P is the process. And by now, you guys all know how process is defined. It's simply a series of steps that leads to specific outputs. And then who gets those outputs? Remember, O stands for outputs. Who gets those outputs? The customers. And you want to achieve the requirements of the customers. So suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and the customers. It's very nice to have a SIPOC map as part of your Lean Six Sigma project, if it makes sense, because it's a very high-level process map that helps identify the key suppliers who provide inputs in the form of data, knowledge, and resources, and so on to the process. The process produces the outputs that meet the requirements of the customers. And you're going to have ample amount of opportunities in both the Black Belt and the Master Black Belt courses in creating a SIPOC map for your Lean Six Sigma required projects. We're going to get a lot of practice with those when you get to those higher levels. Let's look at some SIPOC functions. SIPOC functions identifies process boundaries, identifies the customers and suppliers of a process, identifies the process inputs supplied by the suppliers and the process outputs used by the customer, helps identify data collection needs. How in the world do we go about creating a SIPOC? S stands for suppliers. These are the providers of the process. I is for inputs. Inputs into the process. P is the process. Top level process description. So you're going to have process step number 1, process step number 2, process step number 3, and then you have outputs. Outputs of the process, and then who are your customers? Customers are the receivers of the process outputs. One, provide a description of the process. 2, define the start and end of the process that the project is focused on. 3, list the outputs of the process. 4, list the customers of each process output. And honestly, there might not be one customer for each output. There might just be one customer in totality for all the outputs, right? 5, list the inputs required for the process, as well as how these inputs will be measured. 6, list the suppliers of the process. Let's look at some SIPOC process map examples. Suppliers, Remedy Tool, CAP Team, Business Objectives BO. Those are the suppliers, what's getting supplied. And then from there you have the inputs, P4 cases data, reminder data, cause categories, client correspondence. Now, what are the process steps? That's you have the beginning step and the end step, the start and end of the process. So let's look at the process steps. First step, case creation, then assignment, then work in progress, pending, reminders, resolution, and closure. So what's the beginning of the process? Case creation. What's the ending of the process? Closure. And then what outputs does the process produce? Service level agreement adherence, process capability, and productivity of Alliance team. Now, who are the customers? Who are the recipients of the outputs? Cisco clients and Alliance team agents. Look at this second example. In the second example, who are the suppliers? ERs, Resource Center team, and the OD team. Inputs, level-wise attrition data for L3 to L5, exit interview data for L3 to L5, and Minitab analysis results. What's the process? Start, then resource allocation, induction, retention effort, assessment, appraisals, HR management involvement, retention and exit, interviews, and then finally closure. What are the outputs of that process? Retention effort, reduction in attrition, increase in retention and exit process efficiency. Who are the customers, also known as the recipients of the outputs? RIM employees and stakeholders. Having a SIPOC process map as part of your Lean Six Sigma project helps stakeholders, both internal and external, have a thorough and comprehensive understanding of what goes into a process and achieving your customers' requirements. Have you ever heard of a reverse SIPOC? COPIS? Yeah, it could send your head into a little twirl, right? So in this reverse SIPOC, you start with the customer. Let's look at this example. Who's the customer? The client. And 2, the call center management. What's the output? Call engaged. Information in system, escalation decision, next level support staff engaged, resolution information, call data log to customer files and FAQ, and documented call resolution. What are the process steps? Automated answer call. Staff, you gather customer satisfaction. Accessibility resolve. Transfer the call if you can't. Gather resolution information. Deliver resolution information. Log call data. Confirm resolution with customer. We all love calling into call centers, right? Or to the IT help desk when our computers are acting up, or we're in some type of application and we can't get it to do what it needs to be done, or we forgot our username or our password and we need a password reset. There always seems to be some reason why I need to place a ticket, and it's amazing how knowledgeable the help desk is in resolving any issues I have. I'm very thankful for them. So even though this is a call center management, it's the same. It's the same idea. They're still dealing with tickets. So now let's look at the inputs and resources. What are the inputs? Active phone line, internal call switch, switching software, available representative, call management software, database available, staff experience training, system documentation. I don't have to go through each one. You can look at these on your own. Staff availability, staff discipline, web monitor. These are all the inputs and resources. Who are the suppliers? Phone service provider. Let's go down a little bit. IT group, call center staff, IT group. I don't have to read all of these. You get the point. When you work on your Lean Six Sigma project, I highly recommend that you don't do a reverse IPOC. No reason to get fancy here. I would start with suppliers. What are the supplies or the suppliers are going into? What are the inputs? What are the process steps? What are the outputs? And who is your customer? Keep it very clean. Keep it simple. This is a very powerful visual. And it really helps explain the high level of what your process involves. And why do we care about what your process involves? It's because our number one goal is to ensure that we're meeting the customer's expectations. Your Lean Six Sigma project is also going to have a simple process map. Mapping the process and creating a beautiful visual for your report is a revealing and exhilarating activity for the process team. We find duplications when we do process mapping, redundant steps, long delays, nonsenses, and parts of the process where no one really knows what happens. Process mapping is based around flow charting, but it is much more than that. Done properly, it is explorative, creative, and collective. Mapping should be practical, not theoretical. No assumptions are made. Team walks through the process. Here's the example of a simple process used in the finance department. So you have weeks 1, 2, and 3. And, pay attention to this very carefully, because you are also, whether you're using little notepads, you're using a whiteboard, you and your team are going to be mapping out the process, and you're going to have a visual similar to this for your Lean Six Sigma projects. And I've seen simple process maps, examples students have done that are even more simple than this one being provided, okay? So it doesn't even have to be this fancy unless it's required, okay? So you got your external customer, you got order processing, you got shipping, the warehouse, and the accounts. You have to raise the order, and then you raise control document, you confirm delivery to customer, you pick and assemble pallets. From there, you deliver to customer, and the customers receive their goods. Now, if you go back, you can also raise order, raise control document, and from there, you're going to raise an invoice. And from raising the invoice, you can receive you can raise an invoice, and then you can receive the invoice, and then you pay the invoice, and then lastly, the payment is received. So if it can go into another direction, then do that as well, as you can see in this example. Remember, in a simple process map, you always have the beginning step and the final step. And don't be scared to use colors in order to identify which one is the beginning step and which one is the final step. And these arrows do a really great job to indicate when one step finishes and another step starts. We are now ready to tackle QFD. This is done when we're designing products and services. It's a tool. Let's look at QFD fundamentals, which stands for quality, function, deployment. So we're trying to build a beautiful product, and this is just one of the many tools available in order to achieve that. But one of the first things you're going to need is to know what are your customer requirements. These are the what's. So you have the functional requirements are the hows. And then you have the house of quality number one, what it takes to have quality in your product. And then you have part characteristics, which is the hows. That is the functional requirements. House of quality number two. These are the critical to quality characteristics. What functionality must your product have when you're designing it? Third, you have the manufacturing processes. That's the hows. What are the key manufacturing processes required to design the product or the application, etc., whatever you're working on in designing? Lastly, you have process variables, manufacturing processes, what's? House of quality number four, what are the key process variables? This is just one of the many tools available called QFD, Quality Functional Deployment, that will help you create stellar products or applications or services that your customers will love. Let's look at the history of QFD. Mitsubishi Kobe Shipyard, 1972, where QFD originated. Later on, developed by Toyota and its suppliers. Expanded to other Japanese manufacturers, consumer electronics, home appliances, clothing, integrated circuits, apartment layout planning. Adopted by Ford and GM in the 1980s. Digital Equipment, Hewlett-Packard, AT&T, ITT. The belief that products should be designed to reflect customer desires and tastes. That's the foundation of this tool. Origins of the name. Hein, Shih Tzu. Quality includes features, attributes, and qualities of the product, service, application, etc. Hino. Functionality, mechanization. Henkai, deployment of the product, service, or app. This includes diffusion, development, and evolution. What's in a name? QFD stands for what? Quality, functional, deployment. Quality functional deployment is appropriate when communications and expectations get lost in the complexity of product development. Lack of structure or logic to the allocation of product development resources. Lack of efficient and/or effective product process development teamwork. Extended development time caused by excessive redesign, problem solving, or firefighting. Quality functional deployment. A method for translating customer requirements into appropriate company program and technical requirements at each phase of the product realization cycle. An orderly process for determining critical to quality variables. Common sense approach. Basis, ask your customer. Listen, really listen. What are some of the reasons to use the quality functional deployment tool? Design changes and the time to make those changes. The first product, no QFD. Using QFD. QFD can reduce startup time and cost. Because look what you're gathering. You're gathering the customer requirements. You're gathering the functional requirements. How do you achieve those requirements? You're really putting those building blocks in place. So the QFD benefits is you go from the concept to the customer. QFD is a productivity enhancer. You plan, design, redesign, manufacture, all leads to benefits. Customer requirements often come from the voice of the customer, which is a phrase that covers all the methods we could use to identify from the customers themselves those uses, problems, and needs that should be considered in developing the product or service. So effects of QFD. You have the traditional design, the specification, manufacturer, customer, that's a QFD, and optimal, customer, specification, design, manufacturer, and the customer. QFD takes the voice of the consumer or user all the way through product/process development and onto the marketplace. QFD process, we're looking at this again. You're looking at the system features, the product functionality, the system characteristics required, and design alternatives. This process takes into consideration customer wants, system features required, product functionality, and system characteristics. It is a structured process, identifies CTQs at one level, relates those CTQs to the next level. The basic building block is the house of quality. How do you build the basic house of quality? Well, this house of quality first and foremost establishes the float down, relates what's in house, and ranks the importance. The basis of QFD is the house. Key elements and informational elements. 2 element types in each house. Key elements includes the what's, the customer wants, customer needs, CTQs, and the whys, which is what? The dependent variables, a quality problem, right? The voice of the customer is a statement of needs in the customer's own words. It implies that we have actually gotten these needs from customers rather than from surrogates, such as internal brainstorming sessions or Salesforce interpretations. There are roles for each of these, but the direct input of the customer is key to understanding their concept of value. There are many means of obtaining the voice of the customer. These can be applied individually or in combination. Each situation will be evaluated on its own merits. Among the most common include surveys. Telephone or mail surveys are most common. Surveys are used to quantify strengths of customer preferences. They usually contain a demographic section, a series of questions with numeric ratings, and space for comments. There's also focus groups, which are groups of customers are brought together for a discussion of specific issues. Focus groups are managed by a skilled facilitator who begins with the questions of interest, allows open discussion without directing the comments, but asks clarifying questions. And then you have interviews, structured one-on-one discussions. These may be more structured, such as a survey, or more open, such as a focus group. There can also be observation. Sometimes the best way to understand unexpressed customer needs is to observe them during their daily work. This may mean working on site with them for a period of time, setting up demo equipment and observing their interaction, or other ways of observing their needs. The voice of the customer is a must. Customer importance. How important are the what's to the customer? Customer ranking of their needs. Determination of importance of the customer's wants and needs. First, we establish rating scale. A 1 to 5 scale is typical, with 5 the highest. The high number in the scale should represent best in class. We consider frequency of response when assigning ratings. How important is this want and needs? That's the customer requirements. Voice of the customer. And then you have key elements. Hows. How do we satisfy the customer? What's? Product requirements. Translation for action and X's. What's And the how are we going to achieve the what's? Satisfy the customer needs. Key elements include relationships. Strength of the interrelation between the what's and the how's. H is strong, would be a 9. M medium, 3. L weak, 1. You have the transfer function, which basically states the impact of the x's on the y variable, or in other words, the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable. So what are the critical few x's that have the greatest impact on the product that you're designing? That is the transfer function, and how it's expressed numerically can be seen in here as well. So what's the relationship between the customer's needs and the how's? It can either be strong, which is with the H, medium with an M, or weak with an L. And guess what? You're going to be together with a team and you guys are going to decide what's strong, what's medium, what's weak. This is just a tool when you're actually designing the product or service or an app. Just one of the many tools available to you as a Lean Six Sigma practitioner. And this is the relationship between the hows and the needs. Untangling the web. Next, technical importance. Which hows are key, where the focus should lie. Benchmarking your own and others' products against the design measures which the team has established helps to define the level of performance needed to meet or exceed existing competitors. Performance benchmarking is a relatively expensive and time-consuming process in most industries. Therefore, it is recommended practice to benchmark only against the critical design measures. Criticality is defined by how important a particular measure is to the success of the product and whether there are special circumstances impacting a particular measure. A special circumstance might include whether a particular measure is new or complex. Typically, a team might only benchmark 50% of the design measures. Ranking the hows. Completeness criteria. Have we captured the hows? How are we going to achieve the customer requirements? Information, target, direction. Information on the hows. More is better has an up arrow. Less is better has a downward arrow, and the specific amount is with the circle. How 1, more is better. How 2, less is better, and so on. And how 7 is a specific amount. And that's the target direction, the best direction. And then you have the target values for the hows, the units, how much information is necessary. So 3 pounds, 12 inches, 3 mils, and etc. How much is required? Consistent comparison. Information correlation matrix. Impact of the hows on each other. If you have a circle within a circle, That's a strong positive relationship. As one variable increases, the other variable increases. And then you just have a positive, but not a strong positive, just a normal positive. That means as one variable increases, the other variable increases. A negative means as one variable increases, the other one goes down. And then a strong negative means as one variable increases, another variable sharply decreases. So it's inverse when you have negative variables. And that's the correlation matrix. Conflict resolution. The QFD flow down. You have the levels of granularity, manufacturing environment, you got the customer wants, technical requirements, part characteristics, manufacturing process, and production requirements. You have the software environment, customer wants, product functionality, system characteristics, and design alternatives. And you have the service environment, customer wants, service requirements, service processes, process controls. Flow down relates the houses to each other. So let's look at this. You got the customer wants, the system features, the product functionality, and the system characteristics. This is all just one tool. And there are courses specifically focused on mastering how to create a quality function deployment. You see this a lot with anyone who's responsible for designing the products or they're part of a product design team. Ones that are responsible for the creation of apps or services. The hows at one level become the whats at the next level. Assessment data. Current ratings, competitor number 1, competitor number 2, a future goal, sales point, improvement ratio, and the score. So now we're having this other little diagram next to the main house. That's for the assessment data, and you can compare it with your competitors. Competitive assessment. Where are we and where are our competitors relative to customer importance? Future goal. Where do we want to be? Improvement ratio. The future goal divided by the current rating. Sales point. Marketing leverage. Score. Customer importance times improvement ratio times the sales point. Assessment data on the X's, also known as the independent variables. Engineering competitive assessment. Where are we and where are our competitors relative to the implementation? Cost. Cost or percentage cost to implement. Difficulty. Relative difficulty of implementing. All this matters when you're designing a product, service, or application. You must listen to the customer, need or task, and the function. Perk, sell, work. These are all function types. Perk creates excitement, sell for performance, work, basic. That's the need type. And then you have the voice type. For the perk, excitement, unspoken, unexpected, unknown. The performance required to actually sell the product, that's spoken, that's measurable, that's range of fulfillment. And then the basic work required, that's unspoken, taken for granted, basic, right? The perk is that little cherry on top, I like to say. Understand how customers voice their wants. Now we're looking at the Kano model. Do we want a satisfied customer or a dissatisfied customers? And then don't have, don't do. And what are we going to include in the product, service, or app? And what are we going to do well? Basic needs. Performance needs. Satisfied customer included do well. And then excitement needs. Don't have satisfied customer. Recognize the impact of needs on the customer. Kano model. We have excitement needs, basic needs, and what category each of them falls in. So take a moment to look at that. And time. Company A in 1985, Company A in 1995, and Company A in 2005. Recognize that customer needs do change with time. So the perks are the unspoken, the unexpected, the unknown. Then you have the spoken, measurable range of fulfillment. This is what the customers are expecting from your product, service, or app. And then you have the basic work, which is basically the unspoken, taken for granted, basic, spoken if not met. Understand where and what QFD will impact. Other inputs in the Kano model. How do you get the voice of the customers? You engage in focus groups. You have to understand what the cost of poor quality is. Yeah, you can do pew charts. You can do customer surveys. COPC, I meant customer-oriented product concepting. Understand where and what QFD will impact. What are the common QFD pitfalls? Well, QFD on everything. Set the right granularity, which is the detail required. Don't apply to every last project. The tool itself can be tedious, and it can take a number of days of training and hours to actually master the tool itself. Inadequate priorities. Lack of teamwork, wrong participants, lack of team skills, lack of support or commitment. Too much chart focus. Hurry up and get done. Failure to integrate and implement QFD. Here's a QFD example. Take a moment, look at this yourself, dissect it. You have the engineering measurements and the requirements, the use cases. You have the Kano classification and the importance. You have the applications listed vertically. You have the arrows up and down, and you have the applications. One, translating I/O to and from database protocols. Two, adding and removing interfaces. 3, verifying data content and integrity. 4, optimizing routing. 5, managing exceptions en route. 6, logging performance data. As you see, you have S, you have like the satisfiers, and then D, you have the delighters. And what's the importance of each of these? Well, from here you can see the most important one is the 6. Number 3, verifying data content integrity. What is the least important? Let me look at it very carefully. Boom. The 2. System optimizes use of available travel routing area. And if it's negative number, that means there's an inverse relationship. As one of these variables goes up, the other variable goes down. But if you don't see the negative number next to it, that basically means it's a positive correlation, which indicates that as one variable increases, the other variable increases as well. So it's really nice. I think you can look at those two variables and you can see, okay, what's the relationship between the voice of the customer and the applications and the firmware. Really nice if you can master this tool. What can go wrong? A failed QFD session when you're with all your team members. Team There's no buy-in, no sponsor, wrong voices, no participation, focused on charts, hurry up and get this done, and a lack of training on how to do a QFD. Like I told you, this tool is mostly for product design, leadership, team members, and if you didn't have enough hours of training on how to conduct a QFD, it might be a failed attempt. It's filled with a lot of symbols and numbers and correlations, and you really need to have training. And there's courses specifically focused on just how to create the QFD house. Facilitator, not flexible, no preparation, lack of training, focused on charts, ignores ground rules, cuts off storming phase, tries to drive content. Process, no goal, focus on charts, QFD on everything, no straw man house, hurry up and get done, no preparation. Brainstorm, allowing modifications, ignore ground rules, allowing discussion, negative comments, no participation, no cleanup. Relationships, unclear definitions, no mission statement, incomplete, no sanity check, no participation, no discussion. Integration, hurry up and get done, lack of training, key info ignored, chart dictate number 1, no follow-up, no buy-in. These are all the things that can go wrong that will lead to a failed QFD session. We cannot make decisions based on QFD. QFD is a valuable decision support tool, not a decision maker in itself. Define do's and don'ts. Define the project C2Q's variables. Approve the project charter and do include a high-level process map for your Lean Six Sigma project. Do identify the stakeholders and do a stakeholder analysis for the project. Assure that resource requirements are identified and available to the project. Load the project into project database. Don'ts. Ignore the rigor of C2Q specification. Often the initial C2Q will be very broad. A flow down may be needed to identify the actual actionable project focus. Proceed without buy-in of all key parties. Let's do a quick recap of the Lean Six Sigma white belt. You have the Six Sigma need, the Six Sigma origin, and the Six Sigma quality and organizational architecture. We went over Six Sigma products, Six Sigma working elements, overcoming barriers to Six Sigma benefiting categories. We looked at the derivation of Six Sigma methodology, DMAIC overview, project selection process, define phase deliverables, define phase tools, and define phase do's and don'ts. Throughout all of these lectures, as they involved in Lean Six Sigma white belt, we covered lots of information. How to make quality personal. People make quality. Everybody, including you and me. What am I doing to improve? We must accept this responsibility for the organization to succeed. Who plays a role in the world of Lean Six Sigma? Everyone in the organization. That's the new Lean Six Sigma thinking. First, which customer? Who are you working for? Have you thought about that? 2, exact requirements. What exactly does the customer want from you? 3, focus hard. What activities will deliver these requirements? Focus only on these priorities, then the job. No errors. Allow time to deliver with no mistakes. Correct all errors over time. Who are you working for? 5, No waste. Avoid wasteful activity. 6. Get feedback. Ask the customer if the task was well done. 7. Improve. What is stopping you from doing a better job next time? 8. Set standards. What did you learn? What standards could help meet the requirements more consistently? 9. Share the learning. Talk to your team. Educate the customer. 10. Take pride. Every quality challenge is demanding and you should feel satisfied. Let's set tougher targets together. Bottom line on Lean Six Sigma. Before going ahead, we should look at the bottom line in Six Sigma. Six Sigma won't work for companies with tight budgets or in which management's attention span to quality initiatives is measured in weeks rather than months or years. Be aware of the hype. Six Sigma doesn't solve all problems and it shouldn't be applied in all situations. But if it's a measurable methodological process that you're trying to improve in order to get to the bottom line results, Six Sigma might be the ticket. Done properly, Six Sigma does generate amazing results, and the people with Six Sigma experience gush over it. Talking to a Six Sigma believer, it's almost like talking to Demites. They're both completely sold. As for it's the same as TQM thing, use common sense. Whatever you're doing, whatever you call it, if it's producing measurable bottom line results and your customers are banging at your door to get at your product and not your throat, you're probably on the right track. Six Sigma is a superb strategy that addresses leadership, tools, and infrastructure issues, some of which were neglected by previous programs. Let's continue. Be aware of the hype. Six Sigma doesn't solve all problems and it shouldn't be applied in all situations. Do use common sense. They do share some similar qualities as the TQM. Done properly, Six Sigma does generate amazing results. Let's achieve the success together, and that's the reason why you're sitting in this course, Lean Six Sigma White Belts. Whew. Students, we all got through a total of 5 lectures together that cover the entire body of knowledge contained with the Lean Six Sigma White Belt framework. You are now ready to look over all your notes, study, and get ready for your exam. You do have 2 attempts. It is 20 questions. You do have to get 80% correct in order to pass it. So it's open notes and it's open PowerPoint slides. Don't rush through the exam. You are going to succeed at it. And if anything that you got from these 5 lectures and for completing the entire body of knowledge contained within the Lean Six Sigma White Belt course requirements is that you now possess a foundational elementary level of what Lean Six Sigma is all about. And when you pass that exam, be very proud of yourself. And if you gain confidence and you're ready and you have a strong desire to move forward after earning your white belt and then tackle the yellow and green, black, master black belt, you're on your way because now you have a very good understanding of how the lessons work, the note-taking process, and the body of knowledge contained. And yes, as we go through the belts, it does get more challenging, but we go slowly so you don't feel rushed and you have time to learn all the material. As your instructor, Sandra Hindu, it was absolutely a pleasure teaching this course for you. If you have any questions, simply email me at drsandrahindu@gmail.com or send me a message via Sandra www.hindu.com. I wish you much success as you go ahead very, very soon, I believe, in finishing and passing your 20-question end of belt exam. Do make sure when you email me, when you send me an email, do include exactly the spelling of your name as you want it to appear on your digital certificate. I can't wait to hear that you passed your 20-question exam. Once again, thank you for joining me in the class Lean Six Sigma White Belts. Thank you and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.